What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Pens and Tea. My name is Carrie, and today we are continuing on in this week's blast of videos. So if you missed it, yesterday we talked about top 5 surprising fountain pen nibs, where I basically talk about pens that I was not expecting anything from, and they blew me away as soon as I inked them up, put them to the paper, and I was like, oh, dang. So check that out if you have not already, because that was a lot of fun, and we're getting some good feedback in the comment section down below. And today we're going to talk about the top 5 pens that I really enjoy for journaling. Now, really, at the end of the day, you can talk about, the top 5 pens that I really enjoy using, but I say journaling in particular because it does have a couple things that I look for in pens that I typically don't for the larger, just jotting down a couple notes or, things like that. Like, there are certain aspects that I tend to look towards because I am more of a freestyle writer when it comes to journals. Which means it's sort of just like a stream of consciousness, which means more often than not, when I do journal, I'm writing for about an hour, sometimes a little bit less, sometimes more, depending on, what's going on. But usually my average journaling session is about an hour. So for me, what I'm looking for in pens is comfortability, not only with the way that the grip feels, but the weight of the pen. Do I tend to choke up on it? Things like that. Because that really, when you're writing for an hour or more, the fatigue can sometimes settle in, especially again, because it is stream of consciousness. I very rarely take a break. It's not like, when you set up like a bullet journal or, the 5 lines a day or 5-year journal, things like that, where you really only are writing a couple sentences. Or if you do fill a page, you're just jotting down one thing, then you're putting something over here, then you jot something down, and then this is full on writing. So I really want a smooth writing experience, something that's not going to have too much feedback for me. There is one pen that will have an exception in here for that, but for the most part, they're very smooth, very reliable ink flow. So that's in general kind of what I look for when I'm talking about journaling pens. And for the most part, these have larger-ish ink capacities as well. So the very first pen that I'm going to talk about is the Pilot Custom 823, for a couple reasons. I have 2 of them currently. I have the smoke version and the amber version. I don't have the amber version inked up at the moment, but I do have the smoke version. The amber, I have a medium nib on, and I have a fine nib on this. I actually currently have this inked up with Pilot Iroshizuku Tsukiyo. Really, I love it. And I love the fact that I have 2, because then I also have 2 nib choices, because the difference between the fine and the medium is pretty big. And I've done reviews, by the way, on all of these fountain pens, so feel free to search the channel for them if you want to know the more in-depth about them in particular. But I really like these because they're very smooth, they're nice and wet. Even the fine nib is pretty wet for being a very fine nib. And of course, it depends on the journal that I'm using as well. If it has thin margins, large margins, big line width, small line width, it will depend on the actual nib that I choose to go with. The fine nib tends to have a slightly more feedback than the medium, but they're still pretty solid fountain pens. And of course, they are vacuum fills, which is a blessing and a curse. A little bit more maintenance to clean out. Although, to be fair, it's not that difficult. I did just do a video, a few videos back, on how to clean out vacuum fillers. Specifically, I was using the TWSBI as an example, but same thing works for this. But they have a gigantic ink capacity that you can journal with for days and never run out of them. Plus, I love the way that they feel. They just make me feel good, and that's what I want. So the next one, and the last Pilot on the list, is also the Pilot Custom 912. This one, though, I wouldn't say necessarily is any Pilot Custom 912, but for me, I have the Falcon nib on this with a ebonite feed. So that is why I've specifically chosen this one, because I really like the Falcon nib on here, and that feed, that ebonite feed, makes all the difference. So for those of you who I know are going to ask, because I get it every time I talk about these, I got the feed from nibsmith.com. Just friction fit, pull out the plastic feed, put in the ebonite feed. That allows the Falcon nib to really shine. You can put basically any ink you want in here and it will write like a fire hose, because I have the 3 slits in that ebonite feed. So just ink pours out of this pen and I love it. I don't necessarily use it for flex, as I've spoken before, because I'm not a huge flex person. I'm not very good at it. But what I really enjoy about this is that it is extraordinarily responsive to your pressure. So if you're writing happy, it tends to be a little bit more bubbly. If you're a little upset and you're a little bit harder pressure, you can really tell looking at your writing when you're done where you started from and where you've ended. And I think that's just absolutely fascinating, how my handwriting will change from the beginning of the hour to the end of the hour, which is also just a testament to journaling in and of itself. But this pen really allows me to shine. Plus you can put any ink in here and it'll be dynamite. So I like using the chromatic ones or things like that, the ones that'll change color depending on how much ink you have down. It's just magnifique. One that I'm going to very briefly talk about, because again, if you watched my video yesterday, I gushed a little bit in there, and I have also gone into this pen ad nauseum at this point. So I will just briefly say the Benu Euphoria in particular, but I also have a Talisman and a Briolette. But the Euphoria in particular is my main bay when it comes to Benu fountain pens. This one in particular is the Earl Grey from Goulet Pens exclusive. It is just awesome. It's great. It's a perfect size, fits really nicely in my hand. Standard International cartridge converter, fits really, really nice. And I have a wide variety of nibs that I can choose. I love the look of them. I love putting scented inks into them. It's just, I love them. I love them so much. Like I said, I constantly gush, so I'm not going to go too far into it. But this one just makes me pure happiness, pure joy, pure joy. One that I will use if I'm traveling. So if I'm journaling, maybe up at my cottage, or if I'm at my folks' house or whatever, is in general the Kaweco Sport. Recently, I've been using the Kaweco Art Sport. It is just simply gorgeous. If I move my face out of frame, maybe it'll focus. There you go. It is absolutely adorable. I love the Kaweco Sport. Just like the Benu, I've gone into this pen many, many times. Is it the absolute perfect pen? By no means. Absolutely not. None of these are the perfect pen. There is no such thing as a perfect pen. That's why you have so many. But this one in particular I really like over the other plastic ones. Just feels really good. It writes really well. It wrote bone dry when I first got it, but I've worked with the nib, opened it up a little bit, and it's just really great to travel with because it is so small. And it's just a cute little pocket pen, and yet writes super, super well. This one definitely has the least ink capacity out of all of them. So if I'm going to be gone for a long time, then I'll usually bring an ink sample with me, or another Standard International short converter. And or just, have ink, have more ink. But if it's just for a few days, then it lasts me just fine. So I really like using that one. And then really I struggled for the last one to put in the top 5 between two pens. And so I'll tell you the one that I did not choose to put in the top 5, but it does have an honorable mention, and that is the Lamy 2000. The reason I want this here is because it's the only one that has a snap cap. It fits really nicely in my hand. I absolutely adore it. It's a piston fill, so huge ink capacity, super smooth, writes phenomenally, very easy to clean out. The only reason why I didn't put it in here is mostly because the medium nib that's on here writes a little bit broad for me. I adore this pen. I love it so much. It came in 6th place. So it came in 6th place because what happened to knock it out was the Platinum Century 3776. And the reason why is because this has such a different writing experience than any of my other fountain pens. This is a fine nib. It does have a fair amount of feedback. It's kind of like using a mechanical pencil where, you feel that it's not scratchy, but you feel it moving across the page. None of my other pens have that because I typically don't like that. But this, for whatever reason, is the exception that proves the rule. It's also the first gold nib I ever bought. I tend to have Diatramentis Cola in here, which is funny because that ink tends to feather more than others, but I just love it. And most recently, I did also pick up the celluloid tortoise version. This one has a medium nib on it, so it does not have that feedback. But I chose it also because of the cap. So if you do travel and take it, wherever you want to go, the cap will super seal and it's never going to dry out on you. I have left this pen, my record has been about 4 or 5 months unused with this cap, but I know people have specifically done it for a year or more, and it is still written, no problem. That inner seal is crazy. None of the other pens have that. None of them really ever dry out on me either, but this one in particular has that seal, so no worries. If you're traveling a lot, you don't have to worry about this pen ever drying out on you, which I think is very, very nice, because when you want to sit down and journal, you need a pen that works. So those are the top 5 that I chose: the Pilot 823 and the 912, Benu Euphoria, the Kaweco Art Sport, and the Pilot Platinum 3776, with an honorable mention of the Lamy 2000. But let me know in the comment section down below what pens you like to use for journaling. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree? Why not? Let me know in the comment section down below. While you're there, you might as well hit the like and subscribe, because new videos come out every Monday and Friday, with the exception of this week that come out every day of the week. And like I said, stay tuned to Friday, because oh boy, it is an interesting topic that I never thought I would talk about, but here we are. Also, check out the link in the description for my Patreon if you would like to help support me in my fountain pen habit and continue making videos such as this. But as always, if you're still watching 13 minutes in, you are the reason that I make these videos. Comment down below nibbage, and I'll see you next time. Bye.